What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Be Battle Ready podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Campo, and I created this podcast to give you the insights, strategies, and tactics to help you build a multiple six-figure battle-ready business. And it's not just this podcast. If you head over to battlereadybusiness.com, you can learn more about my coaching. The framework of this podcast, each week we'll cover a different topic. Week 1, we'll cover leadership. Week 2, we'll cover marketing. Week 3, we'll cover sales. And week 4, we'll cover lifestyle and personal development. We do this by having deep dive conversations with leaders, influencers, movers, and shakers in their respective areas of expertise. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show. I have today my good friend, longtime OG CrossFitter. He loves to be called that, Luke Kayam. He is a master lifestyle coach, father and a husband, and a father of the future. So I'll let you take it away from here to introduce yourself, do a little more justice than I can do for you. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Luke.
Bro, stop shaking the screen. I have Tourette's and I'll start cussing at uncontrollably if that shit keeps shaking shit. See? Dude. Battle ready, dude. I love it, bro. Anything you do, Campo, I'm a big fan of. Like Anthony said, we've known each other for some time now. Anybody that I met during my time in the world of high intensity, fast and furious fitness, both the business, the sport, and of course, the brand itself, I'm a fan of. But I really am a friend and fan of Anthony, going back to days living in Southern California and having a newborn baby in Los Angeles and opening up my first gym and having him be right down the road in Huntington Beach, California. His wife, Mel, was a Sick Fit brand ambassador. One of the coolest videos, we'll have to put that in the show notes, is of her walking on her hands across the entire gym floor here at our gym in Scottsdale. And now he has 2 kids of his own. So I love being able to give friends advice on how to be not only, a leader, but also a father. And a father of the future means somebody who takes care of their kids, means that they show up, they handle their responsibilities, and they lead from the front. And they do things often that they don't want to do or that are extremely uncomfortable, but they do it so that they can show their family one day and leave a lasting legacy long beyond the time that they were here on earth. So respect, honor, and love, brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, the framework of the show, we go through each week a different topic. So we start off with week 1, discussing leadership, went into marketing for week 2. Week 3, which was last Sunday, was sales. And week 4, as we'll rotate that schedule, is lifestyle and personal development, because I feel like these 4 categories are are essential to making you battle ready and be able to have you go to the war of the marketplace and win within your business. So I asked you, Luke, because you're obviously one of good friends, and you are a master lifestyle coach. So tell me tell everybody else a little bit more about what you do and, what you're into, how you help people.
Yeah. So, the title means a lot less than the actual experience. I've been toying around with it for a few years now, and, coach is so general. And although I respect it, I value it, I honor it, it's like dad. Like anybody can be a dad, but you got to do a lot of work. You got to be extraordinary in order to be a father of the future. So always constantly working on what that title should be. What people understand most is life coach. And I remember, growing up, my mom was a psychotherapist. She actually went to college and got her master's degree in psychotherapy so that she could do pretty much what I'm doing now, or so that I could do what she was doing back then. I don't have a master's degree. I don't even have a teacher or coaching degree in life coaching. What I have is 20 years of experience in the health and the fitness world, ultimately transforming into a life coach, or in this case, a digital life coach. And I threw the title of master on there because I love the Karate Kid. So I'm a big fan of the sensei, and I figured, why not? You gotta. I saw it yesterday. I actually was on YouTube and I was like, I watched the first 30 seconds, which was the best part of the whole show. But yeah, I did see that, man. Ralph Macchio, I love it.
I've gotten like 2 or 3 messages about, hey, you look like the guy from
Oh yeah,
the guy, whatever his name is.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I coach people on how to live a higher quality of life. What that means for everybody is slightly different. I always share what I went through, some of the pain and struggles of growing up without a father, single parent. My mom died literally in our home at 24 years of age, marrying my high school sweetheart, having 2 kids, opening up one of the first CrossFit gyms in the Southwest, and struggling with abusive behavior from alcohol. Just celebrated 10 years of sobriety. Thank you. Appreciate it. You're the first person to comment on that post. And now people are actually seeking my professional advice, my experience on how they can clean up their own act. And whether that means alcohol or drugs or business or porn or something that they're addicted to that doesn't lift them up and it doesn't serve their family or their mission or their vision, you would hire somebody like me to come in and kind of take an introspective look at what their life and what they're surrounding themselves with. And I say, hey, look, this is what I experienced. This is what I went through. If you've ever seen my wedding photo in 2006, I have about twice the size face. I get teased. People call me Benjamin Button because I have literally started reversing the age clock by taking care of myself. And it's not just fitness related. You and I both know, being in the fitness industry as a personal trainer in a Globo gym for years, we literally only taught one muscle. We taught the bicep curl and some bench press. And maybe in our days in, the CrossFit world, we learned about, functional movements, and we learned about high intensity and strength training. And then eventually we learned about the zone and paleo. And, life is this never ending progression. And we are constantly transforming. I mean, I am not who I was yesterday. Your kids are not who they were when they were born. Nobody is who they are since they first, began life here on this planet. Every single day we transform. And most of us resist that. We fight it. We combat it. We battle it. Oh, no, I don't want change. Oh, no, this works for me. I'm in the business of showing people that change, that uncomfortable, challenging, progressive change is the only thing that's going to improve your life. Other things will temporarily, but this one thing of constant growth and reaching for it. I mean, everything you could imagine, from challenging yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, to doing things that seem so far-fetched or so beyond our grasp that we actually seek those things out. And in seeking them out and overcoming them and conquering them,
got it,
we progress and we move forward. And I want to take as many people, specifically men, husbands, fathers, thought leaders, business professionals, executives, and I want to take them and show them how great this universe is over here that they didn't even know existed.
Basically, you just open their eyes to a new perspective. One thing I want to talk about is, tell me about, you mentioned father of the future. And I want to understand like your vision of what a father of the future is.
That's a great question. So I believe a father of the future is a man who shows up at the forefront of what that person does. He shows up. And why does that sit so close to home to me? Because most men, any single man who's ever created a child, that's the easy part. The hard part is actually doing the work once the kid is born. And, growing up without a father, dealing with the emotional challenges of not having a man or, somebody that I could look up to and learn from. Even worse, the way that my dad came into my life and exited. The biggest thing that I always missed was the fact that he didn't show up. It doesn't matter how bad you are at this or who you learned from or what your childhood was like. As a father, if you do that one thing, if you show up, everything else will fall in place. It'll fall in line. So I believe a father shows up, he's on time, he's consistent, he gives, he loves, he does things for his children that nobody else would possibly do. And he shows and showcases love to his wife or to his significant other. Even if the parents are divorced, he never disrespects his former wife or his mother's children. And he does things with integrity, with love, and with passion.
Awesome. You know, you mentioned not having a father, and, you know, I really appreciate, you know, knowing that who the father you are, right? Not coming from without a father, how you've bridged that gap, how you've rewritten that history. And, you know, I was told by a mentor of ours, you know, James, he's like, you know, part of what we do, you know, in our lives is we rewrite our history, right? We rewrite what we've done, you know, what our fathers came before us and our grandfathers. It's our opportunity to rewrite that. So as showing up, like, what else as a father in the future besides showing up? What else does that look like?
Yeah. So taking care of themselves, you know, physically being strong. And there's going to be a lot of people who say, well, you know, I don't need to work out. I don't need to exercise. I'm in good shape. You know, my stomach is flat. And I look at it from the opposite end of the spectrum as when you physically challenge yourself, not only are you getting stronger, not only are you more capable. And if I take it back to, you know, our ancestors and instinct and, you know, living in a primal sense, in case of emergency, I want to be able to grab both of my kids and throw them on my back and run down the street. Whether I ever need to use that or not, I want to know that I can protect my children. If my family and I are somewhere unsafe or we're going somewhere, you know, I think about the story of Batman and how, you know, I've grown up with that story my entire life. And there's a reason why we sort of have these code of ethics on the back end of our family so that, like, we know nothing good happens after midnight. Why? Because I don't want to put myself and my family in a position that could ultimately harm us or hurt us. So that father has to be able to protect his family. And being physically fit is the base layer of that.
Yep.
You know, training in martial arts or any kind of self-defense or MMA, being able to, you know, shoot a weapon for good, all those things combined truly are what makes a father of the future, is being able to protect his family at all costs.
Yeah. You know, it seems like that, you know, if you had a code, one piece of that code would be to show up, because even in a physically fit, right, you're preparing to show up in the future, right? You know what I mean? Like coming, you know, in that situation where you know, most of the times we won't face physical altercations most of the time, right?
Sure.
Most of the struggles that we'll face as a father comes into the, you know, mental and emotional and spiritual. So what does that look like for a father of the future?
So I you know, part of training, obviously physical, being able to handle any situation, but it goes beyond that, right? We know that through deep, intense, challenging physical fitness, you know, real life application of climbing mountains or swimming across oceans or getting into a ring and sparring and boxing, we know that those things will transform us mentally. We know that it's a challenge to wake up early and climb to the top of a mountain. We know that it's a struggle to get in cold ocean water and risk, you know, natural elements in order to mentally get stronger. The two go hand in hand. And then ultimately how you can use those two pieces, the mental and physical side, will transform into the emotional side of things, right? I know that if my structure, my physical capabilities are sound, and my mental capabilities can reinforce the physical attributes, then in the middle, that truly is the emotional side of it. And this is where I can be very open and very vulnerable. And the father of the future is somebody who's brutally honest and authentic with what they've gone through and what they've experienced. Both of my kids know that I'm 10 years sober. Both of my kids know that when they see another dad who's had a couple drinks, that they immediately separate themselves as quickly as possible. based on the stories that I've told and what they see from that guy who's having a couple cocktails. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's one drink or 100 drinks. We physically change. We obviously biologically change. But as soon as we start to get intoxicated with alcohol, we change who we are. So the emotional side of it is extremely vulnerable. It's open. I'm okay crying. I'm okay telling my kids I love them. I'm okay having this conversation with one person, knowing it's going to be shared across the world, because the goal is to impact other men that have struggled, that have faced it, rock bottom, and looked for ways to get out of it. And we often surround ourselves with other individuals who have gone through something similar. And that's ultimately what I want out of this life. For however long that is, I want to share with other men some of the struggles that I went through, so that they can grab onto that and say, you know what, this is what I went through. Here's what I want to change. Here, as James says it, here's how I want to rewrite history.
Yeah. It's funny because you said something about brutally honest, right? And if someone wouldn't have context to that, they would actually think like, hey, you've got to meet this old construct, this historical construct of what like a strong father would be, right? Because this construct that our society has put on past fathers, right? And this ideal heuristic father is to be strong but not be vulnerable, and the other thing you said that I really appreciate, and I actually heard this recently when talking with your children about this stuff, is this guy he was disconnected from his daughter, right? And he worked to get back that relationship because he just wasn't present. He didn't show up. And when I hear you say show up, that means not just be there. But what he did, he basically opened up to all the bullshit and all the messed up things he did in his life, and it sounds like that a father, a future, really needs to open up in that sense of like, look, I am this, but I'm also this. It's back to that yin and yang, right? You are the dark and you are the light. So, can you elaborate more on that and your viewpoints upon that?
Yeah. That's pretty deep, man. What I think about most is we all want more for our children than we had for ourselves. And regardless of, where a father is coming from, private school education, the beaches of Southern California, or, rock bottom in a third world country, no matter where that father is coming from, he needs to show his child what he experienced, again, good, bad, or ugly, so that his child understands where his family tree comes from. So, if I have addictive personalities on both sides, my mom and my dad, and my wife's family shows zero of that, I can share with my kids, especially of the two, which one I think is more like me. Hey, you got to be careful. Eating too much candy is an addictive trait. And you have addictive traits in your family. I have fight or flight in my family's heritage, in my lineage from my father, because that's what he did. And I catch myself constantly in fight or flight mode. That's how that chip on my shoulder that I grew up with in high school, where there was no dad at a practice or a game, and most of the practices or games my mom wasn't at, and I had a dad of a team or player, do things to get his son in a better position than me, I would take immediate fight action towards that dad, towards that father, towards that coach. Like, I didn't necessarily express it the way that I just did, because I didn't know how to at 16, 17, 18 years old, but I had deep resentment. And that's what would then make me go and say, you know what? Fuck everything. I'm going to go and I'm going to drink. I'm going to go and I'm going to party. I'm going to disconnect. Oh, I got into a fight with my mom. Oh, it's Father's Day. Fuck them both. I'm out and I'm going to go do me. And that fight or flight has been with me, and it probably will be with me my entire life. Which is why I have to have platforms like this, which is why I have to have friends like this who are on the same level as me that can understand and be okay sharing their life with the world so that other people can change, but more importantly, so that their inner circle and themselves can change. And that's what we were talking about at the beginning as part of this lifestyle, is that we always have to be changing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know a little about fight or flight since my dad's side is half Sicilian, so we're pretty hot-headed and going down that. So growing up, you know, I've been there, you know, in that fight aspect, you know, I don't know, sophomore, junior in high school, trying to fight the dads, yelling at them and stuff. Like, it was crazy.
So how about this? 5th grade, Little League. I'm the Little League. I'm tied for the champ of Little League and most strikeouts. And this is important in 5th grade. And we're in Palm Springs. And my head coach, who I absolutely love to this day, Matt Keene, him and his dad were out of town for the last game of the season. Therefore, Michael Samuels and his dad, I think it was Richard Samuels. Richard Samuels is the head coach for this game. Again, no dad at this game, and I'm pretty sure my mom wasn't there. I'm the starting pitcher. I'm the number 4 batter. And because dad is in charge, he puts his son, who hasn't pitched all game, at pitcher and puts him at like number 3 or 4. I think I batted 5th or 6th. Like, I lost my mind during the game. After the game, I tried to like fight the dad because we lost. And then I go and ran it off crying into the woods because I didn't know how to control these emotions. So part of a father of the future is being emotionally stable and strong to handle diverse situations, no matter how painful they may be.
You know, I totally get it. You know, I mean, my dad was around, but he wasn't in the household. Like, it's just the situation, right? 6 years old, like my parents separate and he goes to live with my grandma. You know, I get to have him on the weekends, you know, and he grew up in you know, his whole side of the family and everything. It's not, you didn't express your emotions. There's a lot of teasing and all that stuff. And even like, that was somewhat of the good stuff that we would sit around as the guys during Christmas and tease each other. But, you know, I remember going off. Like, I remember going, I don't know, I might have been 12 years old, 13 years old at Westminster Mall. And something had started happening. And then it was me and 2 other guys. And I ended up trying to like yell at the dad, right? And like, F you, blah, 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 you know, and I'm like 13 years old. Like, what the hell am I doing? You know, I mean, and, you know, there must be something there from not having the dad exactly there all the time to know how to really control those emotions. And then the other side of that is really, I feel very hopeful because I see more and more dads, and I don't know if it's just my sphere of influence, embracing both sides, right? Embracing the strength and the vulnerability. So, you know, I have hope that things are going to be better. I know that for our kids, it'll be better, you know, in the end. You know, we kind of went off tangent around what the purpose of this show is, right? We got deep into this, Father. It was a great conversation. But how do you, like,
listen, if anybody's watching this show for marketing, they're already off this show by now. The only people that are still here are the ones that are real and raw and relevant, bro.
That's it. So, you know, coming back, right, how, in what you do, and, you know, coaching this father of the future, how do you see them preparing what you do? How does it relate to become battle ready, right? So they could basically run their business and come into their business in this battle ready state. Like, how important is lifestyle, like the you know, the lifestyle components, the, you know, the meditation that I know that you coach, and those components, how does that represent? How do you see that representing into becoming battle ready in someone's business?
So let me first take a meditation pause. You know, you were the first person to tell me about Headspace about 2 years ago. And at the time, my meditation practice was very non-existent. You know, I had learned when I was younger as a child through my radical hippie mom, but no application since I was probably like 7 or 8. Yes, at the end of a yoga class, you know, yes, with my eyes closed at, church on Easter, but like no actual deep meditation. So you helped me start that journey. And then with about 24 months, I wanted so much more out of it. I sought after a coach who taught me transcending meditation, who taught me dynamic meditation, who taught me, 3 or 4 different types of personal meditation that I could do on myself, which has now helped me teach it to more of my clients. So I got to take a quick second and say thank you for that, man.
No, I appreciate it. I laugh on the yoga sense because that's my favorite part of yoga because I fall asleep. I'm so relaxed. But, meditation, just like a lot of things that I've done, I wish I would have been 100% more all in when I found out about stuff. I had my first experience into meditation is that in my college program, it was leadership and organizational studies. A part of what we did for our servant leadership course is we took a trip up to real close to where you grew up in the mountains, right? More towards Coachella.
Joshua Tree?
Yeah, more towards Coachella. Just if you go to Coachella, you go this way instead of going to the left.
Yeah.
So it was a Zen Buddhist camp, and they woke us up crazy early, banged on the thing, got us in the room, did the whole thing, and we didn't eat any meat that week. We did a lot of like emotional like conversations, deep thought, deep work into that stuff. And I came home and I was another world, right? It felt like I was like every space and time slowed down. I was floating through things. It was so addictive. I was trying to go back and replicate that. I would try to get up in the middle, and try to meditate in my room, and I just didn't get it because they didn't really give us the context right behind it. And the actual, the frame, right? The frame was there, sit and meditate or breathe or whatever. But the reason, the purpose, the context behind it. And it wasn't until I actually was listening to Garrett White, and during that time, that was like 2015, and he mentioned it. I was like, these guys are doing it? Like, I'm like, and then I started connecting it to something else, and then I started trying it. And then, Headspace is a really good training, so I still use it till today for meditation. I have to go do the advanced, so I don't talk too much and all that stuff, but,
So I got a gamified one for you, and you've probably done this before. I think last year in our mastermind group, but it's simple, and we eliminate the word meditation right away because people think they're supposed to see something when you say meditate, and this is strictly just a breathing exercise. And you're going to set a silent, quiet, simple, light 5-minute timer, and you're going to sit grounded somewhere, preferably outside. The beach is best, but if not, the backyard, some space where you can get grounded to the earth. And you're going to breathe, for 5 minutes. You're going to count how many cycles of inhale, pause, exhale, pause you can complete in 5 minutes. Now, unlike competitive fitness, less is more.
It's like golf.
We want the least amount of round trip breath cycles as possible, which means we're going to be holding our breath. So big breath in through the nose. Hold. I hold till I'm close to passing out, and then emptying the whole airway out and holding again. And I want to do that for 5 minutes. That's your score. And then practice your breathing. Exercise, train, swim, go underwater, hold your breath, take a cold shower. Do these things with your mouth closed, forcing you only to breathe in and out of your nose. And you'll just see naturally over time, the longer you train your lungs and your lung capacity and your lactic acid threshold, the better you'll become at this one skill. And the breathing is so important. Like what I've learned in this past year of really studying meditation and mindfulness is your quality of your life is directly connected to your quality of your breathing. And most of us breathe here. But when we take a moment to breathe here, all of a sudden, like you said a few minutes ago, enlightenment. We're able to pause time. We're able to slow things down. And that's ultimately the goal, because if all we do is rush through life, part of being a father of the future is you quickly get your kids grown up and out of the house, and then what? then you've sped up your life and sped up the time that you can never get back. This time that you have right now, most important time in your child's life right now, 0 to 9 years old, man. And yes, this is important now, 9 to 18 where I am, but 0 to 9, by far the most important. And I've met a lot of men lately. One I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to, spent most of his life building wealth. And because of that, he missed his own children growing up. And this is a guy that I love and respect who died at 62 years of age, you know, working those 80, 90-hour work weeks for decades, you know, running a dealership in Bozeman, Montana. So, you know, if you are this deep into the video, into the podcast, you know, every single day is an opportunity to do something better than you did the day before. And part of that, being a father of the future, is being a better dad. You know, right now I classify my happiness with the amount of times I can get my kids to laugh in a day.
Yeah.
And at 10 and 12, you know, Fortnite,
it's harder, right?
And Kevin Hart are now their amusement.
Yeah.
If I can get them each to laugh once each, but like a real deep, hilarious laugh.
Yeah.
That's a successful day for me.
Yeah. Cool. So for this father of the future that possibly owns their own business, right, and to become battle ready, what would you recommend them do, you know, to get started with their day? You know, I know morning routines are like cliche or whatever, but literally there's a reason why it's so prevalent, right? You don't get up at 12 and start, you know, having a successful day. You know?
Yeah, time for me was something that I didn't respect and really honor until I turned 30. And then now turning 40 this year, it's what everything else revolves around. You've heard everybody say it. It's the most important commodity that we can create or give to somebody else is our time, because we can never get it back. And you truly can't put a price on it. We can keep raising our prices as coaches and as professionals as we service and offer more things to our clients. But ultimately, if we accept a job or a client or a gig or a weekend intensive, we're saying we're going to sacrifice all these other things for that. And time is so valuable. We're all working off of a 24/7, 365, 168 hours in the week. So I used to sleep in all day. Like if the sun was out, I wasn't out. So when I share this message with you, it's because I disrespected time more than anybody else ever has. So right now, if you're sleeping in, if you're rushing out of the house, if you're not getting up and hitting those non-negotiable items of training your mind, training your body, and spending time with your kids in the morning before school, or picking them up, or even both. In my case, like I made the choice to service my kids first, my business second, my wife third, my wife second, my business third, and myself last. But first thing in the morning, I serve myself first to make sure that I don't get pushed to the side. And what that means is, yes, I'm getting up early. What's early? It's relevant. My first client ever here at Gold's Gym in Scottsdale, God, his name was Noel. Noel something. He said, hey, do you train at 6 a.m.? I was like, 6 a.m.? What? No, man, I start at 8. He was like, well, if you want my business, you'll be here at 6. I was like, sold. Okay, 6 a.m. it is. And then I started coaching 6 a.m. classes, and then eventually a 5:30 a.m. class. And then I caught myself, hosting a Hell Week at 5 in the morning for 5. And then eventually it went to 4:44 and then 4:30. And now it's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Because if I can get up an hour earlier than you, then I've got an hour advantage on anybody else out there. So if you sleep in or you're rushing out of the house, what you're really showing is that you don't value your time. And that's an even bigger pain point than not having time, is not valuing your own time.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, would you say that a father of the future values himself, right? And places that, because I recently heard this, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love other people?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of your kids, your family, your business? I'm not a statistical numbers guy. The quantifiable results show on the smile on my face.
Yeah.
Right. The smile that I see people, and that I can do my best job to give somebody a smile, knowing if I get one back, I can read through it and see, is that real? Is it not? That to me is more than enough. But for those people who want to find the numbers, the top 5% of the top 1% of all CEOs and executives all exercise and meditate 5 days a week. The top 5% of the Fortune 500 companies, the top of the top, they are exercising, training their body, and mentally training 5 days a week.
Nice.
So that's a stat that, the proof is in the numbers. The proof is in what happens when you do it. But how do you quantify meditation? How do you quantify a walk with your wife after dinner? How do you put that in a category line item for an employee if they learn these tactics and they implement them, that they're going to stick around longer, they're going to have less sick days, they're going to be happier, they're going to be healthier, they're going to be more productive. And in this space of coaching and really getting into now breaking in to the executive coaching world and speaking and coming into businesses and teaching them what we think is simple. It's definitely not easy what you and I do, but we definitely think it's simple now to get up early and exercise and meditate. And that's just the first 2 steps of the day. But it's not simple. So what we have to do is retrain our mindset. We have to retrain the thought process.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, going back to, I remember joining your mastermind, and at that point, I was in a fucking fight, right? Like I was flying back and forth from NorCal to SoCal, spending 4 or 5 days away from my, let alone your wife, but your sub 1-year-old son, and staying in some odd house, all that stuff. And really getting into that mastermind helped me really break that habit, right? Of just fucking, I had to be at work at 9. I'd get up at probably 8, like get some coffee and go, right? And I've told this story a few times. It wasn't until that whole situation was over to realize how suppressed everything was, right? And it was survival, but getting into that really established that. And then once I got, moved to Utah, I got back with my family, I really continued that. And it's been pretty consistent ever since. So my experience with getting up, and like right now, get up, I go get coffee. It's just what I'm going to do. So, I was going to give you some shit. Hey, what about the coffee, man? I'm addicted to that stuff. Whatever. So go get a coffee, go to the gym. I mean, there's some nights that, my oldest son doesn't, I think Monday night or Tuesday night, no, Sunday night, he was up at 2:30 and bright awake. And I'm like, dude, so gym after that night isn't that hard, isn't that effective, but at least you get some of them out. So, get through that morning routine, get into that stuff and go from there. So yeah.
Yeah, it's important. And again, I didn't have a dad who showed me how to be more successful. My mom was 65 when I was 20. So her definition of success, like for her, it was all about going to college. And had she seen now who I've become and the family and the tribe that I've created and the mission that I have in my life, it would probably bring tears to her eyes because she thought I had to go to college. So, man, I can't tell you how important it is that we teach our future, both male and female, the importance of connecting the mind and the body and the heart. And if you want to grab onto the spirit, great. But if you pretend like that doesn't exist, you're missing something. So if you can put all those things together, with the mission of giving back, of serving, then life will be absolutely extraordinary for you. And the last thing I wanted to say about that was, like, if you're not getting out of bed every morning on fire, ready to get like absolutely 100% to knock the door down, that's your fault, homie. That's your bad, because you can fix that shit. You can change it.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be a values, right? Like, part of what in my coaching, the first thing I take people through is now what I'm understanding as their zone of greatness, right? And my construct and my framework for that is like, what do you feel like you're best at, right? What do you feel called to and compelled to do? And how can you make an impact on people's lives, right? And how can you blend that into what you get up and do every day, right? And within that compartment is your values. So if I go back to that situation where I was going back and forth, being away from my family, like, my values were misaligned. So I fucking, really hated it, right? I wouldn't come out and say it because I just had to get through it, right? And fight with it. But it really comes down to the values, right? And as you say, it's your fault. It's all my fault. I would put myself there, right? I made those choices to go do that. I can't be the victim in that, right? So once you get into that place where you just don't have that motivation, you've got to step back and really look, well, what the fuck am I doing to put myself in a position to feel like that?
Yeah. The upside of it's your fault, the positive reinforcing way to say that, I say that with, a joking face, but it starts with you. So that's the positive way to look at it is, the same, whatever got you into this mess, you can get yourself out of it. And a mess doesn't have to be rock bottom where you're crashing cars and you're getting DUIs and, you're falling asleep on the neighbor's couch naked on a Sunday morning, right? Like, those things just have happened to people I know, but you don't have to have that. It could be something small. It could be a Netflix addiction. It could be the lack of, you could be an Amazon spender. You could not have any sentimental value you've created for your family. And there's a reason why, you and I talk about old school journaling. There's a reason why we talk about writing love letters and notes to our children and our wife. There's a reason why, is because these things have helped us. In the same way that you would program the right amount of fitness for your clients, instead of the amount that would hurt them or destroy them or make them feel like, oh my God, I'm so absolutely smashed by doing double Murph on a Sunday, is because you're going to do what you tell your clients to do. You're going to walk the talk. And that's what I do, man. Like meditation, journaling, association, brotherhood, the outdoors, loving, integrity, vulnerability, that shit works. That's why we say to do it, is because it works.
Yeah. And you might be able to get fruits, right? You might be able to get the fruits in business if you just ignore everything else, right? But what are the consequences in your other categories, right? Where's your, you see how many people have massive fortunes, but like your buddy didn't have a relationship with his kids and his family, and, died at an early age. So he let go. We don't even know what his spirituality and his relationship with himself was. So he invested everything he had into that one area. And it's so hard not to like judge yourself and compare yourself because of, right, I'm trying to live this balanced lifestyle, right, and have values and have live great in each one of these, right, that, you look at somebody else, it's extraordinary in one, but then you don't see the rest of it.
Yeah. The wheel, right? They're missing a wheel. We all have a missing wheel. It's identifying what that missing wheel is, and then back ending the work to fill the void or close the gap. And one last thing before I have to go, because I have to go pick up the kids now. A father of the future picks his kids up, not because he has to, but because he wants to. Every couple months, we find a sitter nanny driver. And that city nanny driver it alleviates some time, some responsibilities. And they never last longer than about 60 days. And if you ask Camille, my youngest daughter, she'll tell you that none of them work because my standards are too high and that I fire them all, which is complete crap because they end up leaving for whatever reason. They go back to college, they move. What I'm getting at is instead of filling that gap, I make the choices to move other things around that gap. A father of the future doesn't pass any responsibilities off unless it works out and it fits right, but he takes complete ownership in that. So my wife is traveling Santa Barbara, Los Angeles for work for 2 days. I'm back home and I schedule my life around the pickup and drop off of those kids, which means 2 hours in the morning before they wake up. And it means usually 1 to 3 hours in the evening once they go to bed. Not every night, but a couple nights a week, because it is my duty to make sure that those kids are not just picked up and transported to the next event, but that they're picked up with love and happiness and joy. And your word that I truly love, harmony. And harmony is critical to a man's success in his life.
So before we sign off, I got two things, right? I know that you have something coming up for these fathers of the future. And can you tell me a little give us some details about that, how to join, what's happening?
Yeah, so I put men in a room just like we are right now, and I challenge them to step up and expand every arena of their life. Their mind, their body, their spirit, their business, their relationships, their self, their worth, their personal mindset and development, and ultimately their legacy. And we do this in a 9-week period. It's a men's mastermind group. And this men's mastermind was literally founded by my man, Napoleon Hill, in this book, The Mastermind, which was written in 1926, I believe. I think first edition, 1926, 1939. 1928, the first one was written. So it's almost 100 years old. And it talks about how we need association and accountability and a brotherhood. And not that there are not successful women's masterminds, but this one specifically is built around men, all men, specifically the husband, the father, the entrepreneur, the executive, the business owner, the man who has a family and who has to work on himself and his family and his relationships and everything about him. Because if he's not, his wheel doesn't spin. That missing link right there, it doesn't allow him. It's not efficient and it's not effective.
Bumpy road. It's a bumpy road.
So we get on a call just like this. And I don't call it an interview, but it's a strategy session. And we get a chance to see where you're at and where you want to go. And if it fits, then I invite you to join our application and our men's mastermind. And we launch 4 of these a year. And the next one will be launching in June.
Awesome. And then if someone wanted to get a hold of you, like how do we get a hold of you?
So Facebook is number 1, Luke at lukekayem.com. And you can find me on Facebook as well at the sign, Extreme Accountability Coach, at Extreme Accountability Coach, Luke Kayem.
Awesome, brother. Thank you for your time. And this wraps episode number 4 of the Be Battle Ready podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Campos, signing off with my boy, Luke Kayem. Until next time, out.